Talk to us, I think, about sort of the inquiry, the big block trades. Set the scene for us of the scope of that inquiry.
Look, this all happened, to take our viewers back about 9 months, when we heard about the head of the equity syndicate desk at Morgan Stanley, the top equity franchise on Wall Street, being placed on leave. That was 9 months ago in November. Soon after, we saw news reports that the Department of Justice was looking at this arcane corner of finance. You don't normally think about Wall Street crime and think about block trading. Insider trading, much easier to grasp. But something like block trading, where you have bankers trying to take a slug of stock, trying to offload it from one investor and pass it on somewhere else without really affecting the stock price so much, it does operate in a bit of gray area, but no one would have thought of any criminal act there. But now the DOJ is looking at that front. And 9 months later, when you have another banker on that very same desk being placed on leave again, it certainly makes you wonder where the fault lines lie and if we're going to get more significant updates going forward.
That's the regulatory side, but what about the business side? Is there a real impact on Morgan Stanley yet? Is there going to be an impact on Morgan Stanley, especially because some of these executives are inside of one of the most coveted desks on Wall Street that is responsible for really overseeing the plumbing of a lot of the biggest IPOs in the world?
That's fair. If you talk about the equity underwriting desk, look at what happened last year. Massive year for the business. At Goldman Sachs, they made $5 billion in revenue. At Morgan Stanley, about $4.5 billion. This year, across the street, we know that equity underwriting business has been crushed. Less than $150 million at both Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, the two best shops. So is that an impact of this probe on the Morgan Stanley business? Probably not. Everyone is getting crushed right now. But questions will be asked if they're not able to regain and keep that top spot when the market returns, whether that's an impact of this. When an Uber decides to offload its Zomato stake in Asia, and instead of going with Morgan Stanley, its banker, it goes with Bank of America, as it recently did, was that because of some other concerns or some other relationships? You will see those questions pop up with more frequency if we see this trend persist.
And talking of the regulatory side of the trend, are we seeing a more active DOJ? Are we going to see these further of this digging around in these sorts of, as you said, more grey areas of the market?
It appears so. Under Damian Williams, the chief prosecutor at the Southern District of New York, they've certainly promised to have a relentless approach towards white-collar crime. They want to make sure there isn't one rule for the rich and powerful and another set of rules for everyone else out there. And they are going after several cases. You've already seen cases like the ones brought against a unit of Allianz, against Glencore, the charges against Archegos, and this block trade probe, as things stand, is one of the most prominent investigations taking place, which is focused on the activity of Wall Street bankers.
There's a feeling here that this probe is running a little more quickly for a probe that really started a long time ago. This investigation, or at least questions around block trading, started years ago. Is it going to quash the business once and for all? That's a big question here.
You're right. Seeds of this business do go back a few years, and new life was breathed into it with the collapse of Archegos, when there were several blocks being sung around the market because there was a forced liquidation happening. And that's really what has spurred interest in this corner of the business. But will it really crush the business? Hard to imagine, right? There is still a service being provided that is important and essential. And one must say that even through this probe, banks like Morgan Stanley and others have been executing blocks where they can, because that still needs to be done. Finance still needs to go on.